ECOWAS permanent mission in the Gambia, in collaboration with the Association of Non-Governmental Organizations, Tango, and the West African Network for Peacebuilding, WANEP, organized a one-day brainstorming session focused on gender inclusion to promote democracy and good governance. The event held at the ECOWAS office in Fajara brought together key stakeholders to discuss strategies for enhancing women's participation in governance and decision-making. Organizers emphasized that the session aimed at addressing persistent gender disparities in political and leadership roles in the Gambia, where women, despite making up to the majority of the population, remain underrepresented in decision-making at community, national and regional levels. Participants included representatives from the civil society organizations, government institutions, and advocacy groups engaged in discussions on policy reforms, capacity building initiatives, and strategies to empower women in political governance structures. Speaking at the event, Miata Lily French, head of ECOWAS mission in the Gambia, highlighted the importance of inclusive leadership in fostering sustainable democracy. She underscores ECOWAS' commitment to women's empowerment.
Political participation is just one arm of it, but it is a very important arm because it is politics that determines policy. And if we are not around the table as women, when the policies are determined, then we are losing out a lot. We realize that participation in the Gambia is quite low. Like every other West African countries, when it comes to polling day, you see more women on the queues. But when it comes to those who are competing for political office and those who get appointed, the number dwindles to a very, very small number. If we look at the parliament, for example, you realize that it's a very small percentage of women. I think it's just about 5. Yes, that we have as women. Even contesting the last presidential elections, we only had one candidate that was female. So we want to see how we can improve on that. And we know it's never too early to start preparing, especially for women and politics, because it takes a lot of time, it takes a good amount of money, and it takes a lot of reorientation of the mind for people to accept that the woman that is standing in front of them deserves their vote.
She stated that women's empowerment is a key priority for ECOWAS, as they believe that building inclusive societies is impossible without ensuring women are not left behind.
Keep discussing them and see how we can proffer solutions and see how we can get more women into politics, more women at decision-making positions, not necessarily presidential. That might be difficult, but we can start talking about that. It's a possibility. We've had one, in fact, the first female president in the entire Africa, elected president, was Madam Johnson Sirleaf, and she was from West Africa, not very far, from Liberia. So it is not an impossibility for Gambian women to do the same. So let's keep talking. Let's keep talking to those around us, because maybe you are not interested in politics, but maybe you know somebody who is, or maybe you know somebody who you think might make a good politician, but hasn't thought about it.
The discussions also set light on key barriers limiting women's participation in political and governance, including low levels of education, high unemployment rates, restricting access to essential services, and limited involvement in saving social, cultural, political, and economic spheres. Amiture, a representative from Tango, stressed the importance of such sessions in bridging the gender gap in governance. She noted that while women in the Gambia have high voter registration rates, their representation in leadership remains low.
If you look at the women, the percentage that they constitute in the total population is relatively high. The voter register, it's 58%, and also if you look at the voter, it is 51%. So it makes a significant gap between the male and also the female. So now, what we are being affected is the underrepresentation of women. So today we gather here as a civil society organization to have a brainstorming session on how can we increase the women political participation. So we realize that we are having the presidential election next year, 2026. So I know us as a civil society, we have not seen yet any aspiring candidate or any female that is willing to stand for presidency. But then notwithstanding, we want to target the parliamentary election that will be happening in 2027. We want to see more female that are out, and also not only out, we want to see their fellow women to support them, to make sure that we have high level of women participation in the parliament.
She added that the session will not only be beneficial to them, but will also equip them with the necessary tools to develop both short-term and long-term strategies aimed at increasing women's participation in Gambian politics.
And when we say women, we are not leaving the marginal, we are not leaving the persons with disability. We want to see women with disability also being represented, because the last executive we have seen a woman that has been represented at the National Assembly, but then this time around we do not have any person with disability. But the next election, come 2027, during the parliamentary election, we want to see both women represented and also the persons with disability represented. So today that's the reason why we are gathered here under ECOWAS Permanent Mission.
During the session, ECOWAS and civil society organizations reaffirmed their commitment to advocating for greater women's representation at all levels of society. They pledged to continue pushing for policies and initiatives that advance gender equality and empower women in leadership and decision-making roles. Reporting for Kerfatu, I am Ramatulai Jao.